or setting up a file for laser cutting topography and making a physical model. So the first thing I want to do here is I'm actually going to scale everything. Now I know there's a lot of stuff in here from your drawings, so I'm just going to go ahead and leave that off. And it'll make it a little easier to see what I'm doing. Okay, and then I could also actually at this point, if I select all my topo lines, I can go to that layer, right click, select objects, use the command bounding box. Then in 3D, I have a box around the area where I know I have good information for my topography. So the first thing I would do is actually take that box and trim my topography surface. Okay, and then I can delete the box. I'm going to delete this as well. So make sure you save a copy of this file. Oops, that's not good. It shouldn't have happened. So you could also, if you use the command scale 1D, just make it a little taller. So go from the midpoint of one edge to the bottom of one edge. Just make it a little taller before you trim it. And you should get a good clean outline. Okay, and for this I don't actually really need my topo lines, my contour lines either. I'm just going to use my surface, my 3D surface. And I'll explain why later. So I'm actually going to turn that layer off as well. And I do want to make sure I keep the box in place. I can get rid of these. Okay. So what I really want to do right now is, before I do anything, is scale my geometry. So I would use the command units. I want to go from feet to inches. Click OK. When I ask you if you want to scale it, you just want to hit yes. And all that means is that it'll stay the same size. So now, if we were to measure the distance from one edge to the other, it would still be the same distance. It would just tell us in inches. So like it's 13,000 inches. And that's fine. That means that now we can easily scale our model without getting confused. So the first thing I want to do always is use the command scale. So not 1D or 2D, just scale. Up to whichever point you want. And you want to type in the command line 1 divided by 12, or 1/12. And that will mean then that you've gone from feet to inches. So if we were to measure the topography, now it's 1,000 inches, which is, you know, before it was 1,000 feet, now it's 1,000 inches. And then we want to actually scale it down to the size that it is. Or I'm sorry, to the size that our scale is. So if we're doing a scale of 1/2 inch equals a foot, I would just type in scale, click it anywhere again, and type 1-2, 1/2. Okay. Now, well, if we measure our house, for example, 13.5 by 17, which should be, you know, the correct dimensions for your houses. So then what I would do is I would make another box, and this is what you'll do, and you can actually, as long as you keep your aerial image in place, you can kind of line it up that way. I don't know what size models you guys are going to want to do for your topography. It is advisable to keep in mind that the laser bed is 18 by 32. So I'm going to just use a 32 by 18 inch box for starters. Whoa, I'm way off. Way up in the air. All right. I can move this guy up. Just use the command move, select vertical. You can also move your objects down. Okay. So, I don't know if this is the scale you're going to be modeling a topography for. I'm just going to assume that for your topography model, you're doing something quite a bit smaller. I'm actually going to scale your model one more time. You could make topography for this. You would just have to break it up into smaller pieces. For what I'm doing right now, I'm going to go down to like an 1/8 inch model. I'm going to select everything again, scale. Now to go from 1/2 inch equals a foot, we only have to 1/8 of an inch. We only have to go down by 1/4. Oops. And then when we measure our house, so 3.3 3/8, which should be more or less the right scale. So you can choose whatever scale you want, but I'm just going to show you how to do it at this scale for now. So then I could take my box. If I'm in wireframe, I'll line it up with where I want it relative to my house and relative to my aerial. Okay. And then in shaded. So you can also, when you drag this box, if you hit Control on the keyboard, you can constrain it to vertical. So I'm just going to make sure it's going through my surface. Okay, and then I'm going to trim my surface. I can hide my aerial image at this time. And then I probably also want to kind of figure out, how deep I want this to be. So if I select the bit of topography I have left, I can go bounding box. So the bounding box will be created at the extents vertically of the topography. If I go scale 1D, I can see down here, if I look when I'm snapping, that it's 4.229. Let's just make it an even 5. Okay. And then I would select my topography, trim, and trim my box. So we're going to use this. This is one method of modeling a topography. It's actually less material efficient. And I'm going to show you another method as well. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to make a copy of everything right now. So I'll select everything and just type in copy. Okay. So now I have two models. First is like the kind of traditional topo. The first thing I'm going to show you is the traditional topo technique. And actually, if you wanted to, at this point, you could also trim the surface with the house, because you probably want to model a hole in your topography in order for your kind of house model to nestle into. So I would select the topography surface and the box, just type in join. It should say joined into one closed poly surface. That's good. I'm going to select my box and I'm going to make a copy of it. I'll type in copy and then I'll hit this option in place. So I just duplicated basically my house. And then I'll go Boolean difference. Objects to subtract from would be my topo. Objects to, so then I'll press enter. Objects to subtract with would be one of my copies. The reason I make a copy is because it deletes that box when I model it. Okay. And so actually I'm going to delete this and make a copy of this one. You can also make a copy by dragging it and tapping Alt on the keyboard. And you'll see next to the cursor that the little symbol will change to a plus sign. Okay. And then the rest is actually pretty simple. So one thing you need to know is the overall dimensions of your material, or I'm sorry, the thickness dimension of your material. I'm going to assume that you're cutting this out of like 1/8 inch, chipboard or something like that. So I'm going to select my joined poly surface topography model. I'm going to type in contour. So it'll ask for a base point. I'll click on the bottom of one of the corners of my box. Doesn't matter which one. Then it'll ask for a direction. And then I'll just trace. Doesn't matter where, I just want to trace one of the edges of the box. And then it'll ask for a distance between contours. Again, I'm going to just assume that your material is 1/8 of an inch, but you can enter whatever dimension the thickness of your material is in here. And then I'll press enter. Now what's great about doing it this way, and what I mean by that is like adding a box around it, is we have all closed outlines. Now, if I wanted to lay these out, so I have all my outlines, I could actually put those on a new layer. I'm actually gonna just clean up my layers real quick. I'll put those on a new layer. Okay, topo outlines. Okay, and then I could select those objects, and I'm going to go to the viewport right, zoom, selected, and I'm actually going to show you a little trick for laying these out. I'm going to use the command shear, S-H-E-A-R, and make sure you're in the right viewport when you do this. I'm going to click on one corner. I'm just going to hold shift and draw a line up, like so. Click again. And then I'm going to move my cursor way out to the left until I can kind of see that my topo lines aren't overlapping each other anymore. Like that. I go back to top view. You can see that because our contours are 2D, they haven't been distorted, but they've been moved, you know, kind of proportionally with each one. So then I would take those and I could add labels, or I could lay them out on sheets for the laser cutter, and cut them all out and glue them together. So that's one method of modeling topography. As you can see, even at this scale, uses a bunch of material. Obviously you could get rid of some of the square ones and just use like a plywood base or something like that. You do want to use a rigid base with this method, because gluing this much kind of paper-based material together can cause the material to warp. But I'm going to show you another method that's a little bit more materially efficient. So I'm going to select my second, I guess I didn't need to make a copy, but I'm going to select my second geometry. I'm going to explode it. And I just want to deselect my sides of my box and the bottom of my box. So I don't need like a solid box for this. I just want the surface. And then the part I subtracted for the house. I'll join those back together. Okay, and then I want to do kind of the same thing I did before, which is contour. So I'll type in contour. I'll snap to the bottom. And then somewhere along that edge to make a vertical. And then I'll use the same distance for right now. And press enter. Okay, now this is a slightly different method. So I'm going to make a copy of these lines. I'll put them on my same layer. Make a copy and move them out to one side. And then I'm actually going to use a command called, if I select all these lines, I'll go to top view, select all the lines, and I'm going to project to C plane. Do this in top view and press enter. Oops, why didn't that work? Oh, it did work. So yeah, we're still kind of floating really high up in space, but basically that'll flatten everything down to like 0 in the Z dimension. So now I have a 2D set of lines. And I can move those away as well. And this is actually a really simple trick. I would just make another copy of these. And then I'm going to create 2 layers. One of them is cut. One of them is, oops, etch or score. Actually, score is better. Okay. I'm going to make one of these red and one of these blue. So, by the way, when you're making files for the laser cutter, and there are instructions on this online, but there are only a handful of like colors that you can choose that the laser cutter will recognize. Black is one of them, red, I believe this green, cyan, blue, magenta. You want to kind of use those simple colors. I'm going to select all my lines, so both copies. Change them onto the layer score. Now, starting from one end, I want to select every other line. Okay, and I'm going to change those onto the other layer, which is cut. Okay, that looks good. And then I'm going to do the opposite on this set of lines. So I started there, and then I'll skip that one and I'll start on the next line. This allows us to make like a kind of alternating pattern of cut and score. Okay. And now what we can do is if I were to take, so what I would also do now, if I'm in top view still, I would select these lines and go bounding box. Because they're completely flat, I'll just get a rectangle. I would also want to put that on the cut layer. But what I can also do just to simulate how this works, I'm going to make a plane for both of these. I'm going to select both of these, and I'm going to type in split. And then I'm going to select the layer cut. Right click, select objects. So those are my cutting lines. Press enter. Okay. And so now, if I were to sequentially move these up, I could go move, vertical, 0.125. Or no, I'm sorry. Actually, you would move it up by a 1/4 inch. Because we're skipping a layer. So 0.25. Why is that not working? Move, vertical, 0.25. Huh. So you don't actually need to do this when you model it, but I'm just going to do it really quick to kind of demonstrate how this actually works. And maybe I'll stop there. Or actually, no, I'll keep going. I'll do the whole thing. Actually, yeah, once you've moved one set, you can actually just use the steps. As long as you're precise about where you're snapping to, so you don't kind of get your objects misaligned. Looks like that one was separated. Okay. We can delete that outline. Move this one too far. Move that back down. Okay. And then if I were to select all these surfaces, so select objects. So I'll just do them all at once. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. So move vertical 0.25. And then just go one at a time. Okay. Okay, so I'll select those surfaces, and then I'm going to extrude surf. And I want to make it 0.125. I also want to make sure the option solid is set to yes. Okay. So it extruded them all upward. Also, I can delete my original surfaces now. If I go SEL last, should select the same set of extruded contours. And then I'll move them all down by the thickness so we can still see the lines on top. I guess this one got messed up. It didn't move far enough. Not sure why that is. Anyway. And then if I were to move these all over, you can see what you'll end up with is a set of individual surfaces that are kind of shiplapped over each other. What's cool about this is that the pattern is super fast to make. So you would do it just like what we ended up with before. Just make 2 patterns with every other line being red or being cut and score. And then also, if we score these blue lines, then we'll know exactly where to line up. When I bring this layer in and glue it, I know exactly where to line it up on that layer, and then I'll know exactly where to line this one up on that contour. So it's a pretty good way to make a precise topo. The biggest problem is kind of holding it up in the air, right? Because it doesn't really have a solid base if you model it this way. So I guess, yeah, there is one reason you might want to build the 3D surface in Rhino, which would be you could also laser cut like some sides, and you could even laser cut like some bottoms. So you could make yourself a surface down here. I will show you how to do that right now. If I went contour, oops, I'm sorry, not contour. I'm going to select all these objects. I'm going to use the command section. And you may want to locate yours more precisely, I don't know. Oops. So those 2 outlines, we could use, we just close up this line. Okay, and then I'll pull these out. We can also go SEL point or SEL PT to select points. Just delete those for right now. And then I would actually select all this, or just select one at a time. Hit explode, and then hit trim. And you can just go in here and clean up all that excess. Okay, and then select all those lines and join them. So they didn't quite join properly. Not sure why. Huh. Oh, because we have a duplicate line down here. I would just explode that, get rid of this line. Okay, then you could use that outline and laser cut it, and it would kind of form a support. I could extrude this as well. So it's not quite a clothesline, but I'll just hit yes. I can set that to my direction. I can say, I don't know why both sides is on. I'll just type in 125. Okay. I could cap that. Uh-oh. Ay. Why are my lines not good? Okay, so another way to quickly fix this, by the way, if I went to right view, so I could just type in the word right, hit enter. You have a problem like this, sometimes it's faster to just hatch it. So I would deselect everything, type in hatch, make sure the option boundary is set to yes. Select all the outlines I want, click inside, and then make it a solid hatch. And I could actually quickly do this one the same way instead of trimming everything. So I could select it, hatch, and then fill everything in. Okay, make sure it's solid, okay. And then when you explode a solid hatch, so if I type in explode, it actually makes a nice clean surface. So that's a little kind of shortcut for you. Okay, and then you could cut the, oh, I actually trimmed this wrong. You wanted to trim it to the underside. So I'm sorry, I shouldn't have trimmed the inside, I should have trimmed the top. So actually what I would want to do, God, I wonder if I can go back that far. Oh yeah, there we go. So I would actually want to hatch it like this. It's a whole lot easier. I'd select both those, explode them, and then those would form a good support. And if I wanted their outlines, I just need to go select this surface, use the command unroll surf, and unroll will just place a two-dimensional surface at the origin. Might be kind of far away. Yeah, so we're way out in space, so just keep that in mind. I don't know, actually it's not even near the origin. That's very weird. Anyway, I can just use select last to find it. And then once you have it kind of laid out in top view, you would just go dupe border. And then you have your 2D outline for laser cutting. So you could send that profile line to the laser cutter with no problem. Okay. And yes, so the other thing is you could make sides for your topography this way. So you could either have them go kind of underneath the contour lines, or you could have them sit kind of outside of the contours. And for that, I would model it really very similar. I'm actually going to turn off my cut and score lines real quick. I'm going to go to top view, use the command dupe edge. And then again, I'm clicking and moving my mouse only to the right. So when you move it to the left, you select a whole bunch of stuff. I don't want that, right? I just want what's inside of where my mouse is moving. Okay. So I just want to select those outside outlines of that side of the box. And I actually want, okay, I want that outline on as well. If I press enter, then I've turned these lines all into, I've turned the edges of these surfaces into lines. And then I would kind of do, oops, why is this box? This box isn't actually at the bottom. And then I would kind of do the modeling of the sides of the box in exactly the same way. So I would change into right view, or whichever view is kind of parallel to the lines, or perpendicular to the lines I'm trying to model on. Hatch, select all those lines. Oops, I don't have, I'm missing a line right here. I could go hatch. Oops, why is that not working? Maybe you have to explode this, just have a bottom. Okay, there we go. Okay. Set it to solid, click OK. There's one outline. Go to top view, dupe edge. Spelled it wrong, dupe edge. So I want to not select any really small edges, those will mess up my results. Okay. And then I could move those over here. I could also explode this right now just so I can kind of see better. Okay. And then I would draw a line to close these outlines. So again, I want to select the view that's perpendicular to the surface I want to model. So I don't need that outline. But yeah, you'll just want to pay attention to if you have any really small lines at the corners. I would go front now, and then I would go hatch, and I think I thought there was a way to fill everything, but it doesn't matter. So just click inside each outline. Okay, click OK. And then explode that one. Oops, I don't know what. Toggle floating viewport. I did not want to do that. Okay. Top is what I want. Dupe edge. Okay. Move those lines. Close it with the base. And now again, I would go back to right view. Hatch. Click OK. Explode that guy. Okay. Last one, so we go back to top view, dupe edge. Oops. Excuse me. Do all those lines, move them. Okay. Oops. Okay. Again, I would be in front view for this one. Hatch. Oops. Okay, that should have it. And then explode the hatch. All right. So then what I would do finally is move everything back. So we would just want to kind of double check, like if I extrude this surface to 1/8 of an inch, and it's sitting like to the outside of my box. Let's say I do the same with both of these. Oops. Extrude surface. So I'm going to move it by its thickness. So it would be sitting to the outside of my contour, like so. Then what I would actually want to do here is I could use the command extend surf, SRF. Select the edge of that surface and extend it by 0.125. Try it again. Doesn't seem to be working. Extend. Oops. Extend surf. That's very weird. I'm not sure why that doesn't work. So another way you can do it is use the command move edge. Oops, I did not move that correctly. Extend. Really weird. I guess because because of the way we made this surface, it kind of doesn't want to work with that command. So rather than dealing with that here, what I could do is just modify it once I've unrolled it. So then I would take this one, go unroll surface. It doesn't matter if we explode it. And then I would type in SEL last, zoom selected. And if I change into top view, so there's that contour. And then I can work the same way with this line, this outline. Go dupe border. And then, because I have a line now, or a polyline, I could just move those edges out 1/8 of an inch. Select the object, then select the control points at the ends. Use the command move to move the control points out slightly. And then I'll get back to my model by going select all, or control A. Deselect this stuff, zoom selected. Okay, so that should pretty much cover it. And then of course if you wanted to go back to just, well, I've moved all my lines on top of each other now, but if you were to go back, you know, I don't know, 15 minutes in the video, and you had two sets of alternating red and blue lines, that's exactly what you would want to laser cut on a laser cutter to generate this topo. So you wouldn't have to do a whole lot of really extensive modeling for that part, just for getting like some contours that would form the outside of the base or the underside of the base. And of course that's something you could also do, you know, by hand afterwards if you wanted to avoid that step. Okay, I think that'll do it for this tutorial.